Have you ever wondered why certain patterns seem to control your life, even when your conscious will wants to change them? As if there were another you hidden in the shadows of your mind, operating silently, guiding your choices, your impulses, your habits. What if I told you that this other you not only exists, but is the one who really controls your reality? We live as if we were awake, but much of what we call life happens in a trance. Not a theatrical hypnotic trance, but a subtle, almost invisible state in which repetitive thoughts, conditioned emotions, and automatic behaviors shape every detail of our destiny. We are stuck in habits not because we lack willpower, but because our consciousness inhabits an altered state, which has become normal. And here begins the revelation. Habits, good or bad, are not born in the field of logic. They are seeds planted in the fertile soil of altered states of consciousness. Intense emotions, traumas, deep visualizations, meditation, prayer, and even moments of suffering or ecstasy. These are portals, and it is in these portals that the subconscious is programmed. That real change happens. In this video, we will explore this forgotten connection between expanded states and habit transformation. We will cross the bridge between psychology and spirituality, between science and mystery, revealing how to access the states in which the mind reconfigures itself, and how to use them to recreate yourself. Because the mind, when understood, is not a prison, it is a key. Are you ready to turn the lock? Long before neuroscience mapped the brain, long before psychology gave names to behaviors, the ancients knew. The state in which the mind inhabits determines the world that one sees. In the mystery schools of Egypt, initiates were led through rituals that took them to altered states of perception, where the veil between the visible and the invisible thinned. And there, with their minds open like a portal, they were reprogrammed for a new reality. Thoth, the Atlantean scribe, spoke of silence as a bridge between worlds. For him, the rational mind was just one of the 7 keys to the inner temple, and the greatest secrets of the soul could only be accessed when consciousness was removed from the ordinary noise. The mind, they said, needed to be stilled like a lake at night, so that truth could emerge from the depths as a clear reflection. In ancient Hinduism, the rishis understood that samskaras, mental impressions that shape our habits, were imprinted in the subtle field of consciousness, and that deep states of meditation allowed them to alter these impressions at their roots. They didn't just sit in silence, they reshaped the very fabric of their being. The shamans of pre-Columbian America used dance, chant, and sacred plants to access invisible realities where they could heal, liberate, and transform. This wasn't symbolic magic. It was the science of the soul. They knew that by altering the state of consciousness, the information field that governs life became accessible. And there, new patterns could be installed, like changing the course of a river before it reaches the sea. Carl Jung would, much later, touch on the same truth when he said, "Until you become conscious of the unconscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it destiny." He understood that the unconscious was not just a repository of memories, but a creative, symbolic space where archetypal forces shaped human behavior. What's more, it is in the non-ordinary states of mind that we can enter this field, to dialogue with it, transform it, and ultimately rewrite our history. Thus, from Greece to India, from the desert to the laboratory, one truth echoes through the centuries. Habits are not broken only with effort, but with heightened awareness. And only when we learn to access these states in an intentional, profound, and sacred way, do we become true alchemists of ourselves. Imagine your mind as a fertile, vast, and mysterious field. In it, thoughts grow like invisible seeds, fed by attention, emotion, and repetition. But what many people don't realize is that this field doesn't respond the same way at all times. There are states of consciousness in which the soil is hardened, resistant to change. And there are states in which it softens, receptive, moldable, almost liquid, ready to be reprogrammed. These moments don't happen by chance. They are altered states of consciousness. But what, after all, is an altered state? It's not just about deep trance or intense mystical experiences. Altered states happen every day, between sleep and waking, during deep meditation, when listening to certain music, in the midst of intense emotions, or even during repetitive tasks that put the brain in automatic mode. In these moments, brain waves change, from the beta state of wakefulness to the alpha, theta, or even delta states, where the conscious mind becomes silent and the subconscious opens like an old book being leafed through by the wind. And here lies the central point. Habits live in the subconscious, not on the logical plane where you decide to change, but in the deep layers where patterns were recorded long before you knew you could choose. That is why, even with willpower, many find themselves stuck in the same repetitions, sabotaging relationships, postponing projects, falling into the same emotional cycles. The conscious mind wants to change, but the unconscious still repeats. Altered states are like secret tunnels to this forgotten region. When accessed with intention, they become shortcuts. It is as if you passed through a hidden door within your own psyche and found the control room where everything begins: habits, beliefs, fears, impulses. And there, with presence and direction, you can erase, resignify, plant something new. But be careful. This access is sensitive. What you think, feel, and imagine in these states is strongly imprinted on the subconscious. This is why negative repetitions during vulnerable moments become traumas, and why affirmations, visualizations, and spiritual practices work so powerfully when done at the right times. The mind, as the ancient alchemists said, is a mirror, but only at certain angles does it reveal its true reflection. And in these reflections lie the invisible threads that weave your destiny. Patterns that, once seen, can be transmuted. Now that we have glimpsed the control room of the subconscious, the inevitable question arises like an ancient whisper. What exactly can be reprogrammed in there? The answer is almost haunting. Everything. Your habits, your self-image, your deepest impulses, even what you believe is possible or not. And this is where altered states reveal their true nature. They are not mystical happenstance, but precise tools for rewriting the codes of your inner reality. Think of the mind as a multifaceted crystal. On its outermost surface, we see daily thoughts, conscious decisions, controlled actions. But in the inner layers, programming is recorded, not in words, but in vibration. And every vibration that is sustained transforms into form. A habit, for example, is simply an energetic pulse, repeated so many times that it becomes solid, automatic. Breaking a habit on the surface is like trying to erase a scar with just a fingernail, but immersing yourself in altered states is like dissolving the mark directly into the tissue where it was made. The ancient traditions knew this. The Egyptians used nocturnal rituals, chants, and symbols to induce states of deep receptivity. Shamans, through drumming and sensory isolation, accessed dimensions where time does not exist. And there, they healed, saw, and transmuted. Even in Vedic texts, samadhi is not just spiritual ecstasy, but a state where the mind dissolves and the being reconfigures itself. Today, modern science is beginning to touch on what the ancients already knew. Neuroplasticity shows us that the brain is changeable, and that new connections are formed when attention meets repetition within favorable states. In other words, when you enter the alpha or theta state, you literally reopen the neural pathways and can choose new paths. But there is one condition. You need awareness, because this fertile field accepts both flowers and poisons. What you think in this state becomes internal reality with increased speed and intensity. That is why so many masters say that thought creates. But not just any thought. It is the thought felt, charged with emotion, and inserted into the fertile ground of the subconscious that creates. If you access a deep state only to repeat your fears, you reinforce the prison. But if, in that same space, you plant intention, compassion, clear vision, you begin to rebuild your own energetic structure. Thus, understanding and working with altered states is not a spiritual luxury. It is the lost key to transformation. And the good news is that this key is within you, waiting to be turned with intention. Now, let's go down one more step, from knowing to doing. It's time to understand how to apply this in everyday life and transform knowledge into real transmutation. Applying this knowledge requires more than understanding. It requires conscious practice, almost like a secret ritual between you and your own mind. The first bridge between altered states and transformation is the moment just before sleep. At this threshold between wakefulness and sleep, your mind is in theta state, the wide open door to the subconscious. Use this moment with reverence. Instead of falling asleep to the sound of worries or social media, lie down in silence, breathe deeply, and declare a clear intention within yourself. Visualize with all your senses what you want to make a habit of, not as a future desire, but as a present reality. Feel as if it is already happening. The subconscious does not distinguish reality from imagination. It responds to living emotion with fidelity. The second practice is the silent morning ritual. In the first few minutes after waking, you are still in a state of slower brain waves, and therefore more moldable. Before picking up your phone or diving into the tasks of the day, sit for a few moments, close your eyes, and repeat a vibrational affirmation. It may be simple, but it needs to be felt. Today, I choose to live from my essence. Or, my mind is open to the new, and my body is a temple of transformation. Repeated with intention, this practice not only anchors a new mental field, but also begins to dissolve old residue. A third powerful technique is rhythmic breathing. When done consciously, 4 counts to inhale, 4 counts to hold, 4 counts to exhale, it changes the brain's internal rhythm and calms the superficial mind. Do this for 5 minutes before meditating or practicing any reprogramming. It's like tuning an instrument before playing sacred music. And when old habits try to return, because they will, use the magic question. What am I feeling right now, and where is it really coming from? This question brings light to the pattern, and light is always the beginning of release. Don't blame yourself. Observe, acknowledge, redirect. This is emotional alchemy. Over time, these small practices become gateways to higher versions of yourself. Because changing your mind isn't about fighting it. It's about learning to gently guide it, like guiding a river to its purest course. Transforming your mind is not an act of force. It is a gesture of remembrance. A return to the natural state of clarity, presence, and inner sovereignty that has always been yours by right, but has been overshadowed by the noise of the world and inherited patterns. When you understand that habits are not born merely from repetition, but from the emotional frequency with which you feed them, you begin to see that all real change begins at an invisible level, in the vibrational field of consciousness. Changing your frequency, entering more subtle states of perception, using the threshold between the conscious and the unconscious as a tool, all of this is not magic. It is the mechanics of the soul. And the good news is, you already have access to these tools. They live in your silences, in the spaces between one thought and another, in the choices you make when no one is looking. True power is not in controlling everything, but in consciously choosing what you allow to repeat itself. And each time you choose presence, intention, the now, a new cycle begins. A cycle that is more yours, freer, more aligned. If this message touched something within you, share it with someone who also needs a reminder. And in the comments, say, "I remember who I am." Because deep down, that's what it's all about. Not becoming something new, but remembering what has always been hidden beneath the veils. And remember, the universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to the vibration you hold. And now, you know how to change yours.